to the Daily Bite. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Andrews. We get close to the end of the book of Samuel today with 2 Samuel chapter 23. We're seeing the last words of David and then a recap of his mighty men. The oracle of David, the son of Jesse, the oracle of a man who was raised on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, the sweet psalmist of Israel. The Spirit of Yahweh speaks to me. His word is on my tongue. The God of Israel has spoken. The Rock of Israel has said to me. When one rules justly over men, ruling in the fear of God, he dawns on them like the morning light, like the sun shining forth on a cloudless morning, like rain that makes grass to sprout from the earth. For does not my house stand so with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and secure. For will he not cause to prosper all my help and my desire? But worthless men are all like thorns that are thrown away, for they cannot be taken with the hand. But the man who touches them arms himself with iron and the shaft of a spear, and they are utterly consumed with fire. These are the names of the mighty men whom David had. Josheb-Basshebeth, a Tachemonite, he was chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 800 whom he killed in one time. Next to him, among the three mighty men, was Eleazar the son of Dodo, son of Ahohi. He was with David when they defied the Philistines who were gathered there for battle, and the men of Israel withdrew. He rose and struck down the Philistines until his hand was weary, and his hand clung to the sword. And Yahweh brought about a great victory that day, and the men returned after him, only to strip the slain. And next to him was Shammah the son of Agi the Hararite. The Philistines gathered together at Lehi, where there was a plot of ground full of lentils, and the men fled from the Philistines. But he took his stand in the midst of the plot and defended it and struck down the Philistines, and Yahweh worked a great victory. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came about harvest time to David at the cave of Adullam, when a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and carried and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to Yahweh and said, "Far be it from me, O Yahweh, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 30, and he wielded his spear against 300 men and killed them and won a name beside the 3. He was the most renowned of the 30 and became their commander, but he did not attain to the 3. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was a valiant man of Kabzeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 Ariels of Moab. He also went down and struck down a lion in the pit on a day when snow had fallen. And he struck down an Egyptian, a handsome man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but Benaiah went down to him with a staff, and snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and won a name beside the 3 mighty men. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3. And David set him over his bodyguard. Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of the 30. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shammah of Harad, Elika of Harad, Helez the Paltite, Ira the son of Akesh of Tekoa, Abiezer of Anathoth, Mebunai the Hushathite, Zalman the Ahahite, Mahari of Netopha, Heleb the son of Bana of Netopha, Ittai the son of Ribai of Gibeah of the people of Benjamin, Benaiah of Pirathon, Hiddai of the brooks of Gash, Abi Alban the Arbathite, Asmaveth of Bahurim, Eliabah the Shalbanite, the sons of Jashan, Jonathan, Shammah the Hararite, Ahiam the son of Sharar the Hararite, Eliphalet the son of Ahasbi of Makkah, Eliam the son of Ahithophel the Gilonite, Hezro of Carmel, Parai the Arbite, Egal the son of Nathan of Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai of Beeroth, the armor bearer of Joab the son of Zeruiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Uriah the Hittite. 37 in all. This is the word of the Lord. What may have jumped out to you the most in this text is the difficulty of reading these names as you try to read them yourself or read them aloud for your family. To be quite honest, what they teach us at the seminary is just go with it. Read the name, read it confidently, and if you mess up, nobody else is going to really realize it. I have studied the Hebrew language, so I'm a little bit more familiar with the language and the kind of normal sounds that you're used to hearing and seeing in that Hebrew tongue. But even I don't know how to pronounce all these things. So that was the encouragement they gave us as we read scripture in church and things like that. Just do it confidently and go with it. So that would be my encouragement to you as well in your own household, that you would, as you do these things. Now we get really, it's divided up into two chunks again, this chapter. And so the first part, just those first 7 verses, are about what David speaks right before he dies. Now, it's interesting that the ESV translation chose to use the word oracle, and it uses it twice, because that word oracle isn't in the Hebrew text. Instead, in the first line, the oracle of David, that is the Hebrew word for word, the words of David. The spoken things of David is what that would say in Hebrew. And the second line, the oracle of the man who was raised on high, it uses a word that probably should be translated as utterance, the utterance of David. So here are the words of David, the last words of David, and he gives utterance, so he speaks. The reason it gets translated as oracle, maybe, perhaps, my best guess for the ESV translators doing the work, is what happens in verse 2. David speaks and says that it is the Lord who is speaking through him. That is, if you look up the definition of an oracle, it does have to do with almost a revelatory sense. So someone speaking on behalf of God. It's not language that we frequently use in Christianity today. We would talk about prophets and prophecy. We would talk about revelation. Those kinds of words are a little bit more familiar language for us. So I don't have an exact reasoning or knowledge of the people who translated this text for you into the ESV. But the NASB, for example, doesn't even bother to use that word. It translates it just as I was sharing with you before. That he was raised on high, he was lifted up. You can reflect here at the end of this, well, really the last 2 books, on David's path from being just a shepherd, the least of the sons of Jesse, to being anointed king over all of Israel. That anointed word shows up here. So to review that one again, to anoint is to pour oil on someone, to specifically set them aside, marking them as the chosen one of the Lord to serve as prophet, priest, or king, depending on what they're being anointed for. That does give you the opportunity also then to reflect on the idea that Jesus himself is the anointed one who serves in all 3 of those offices for us. He is our prophet, he is our priest, and he is our king. And as we think about that, as we consider that, the Old Testament was the promise of a Messiah that would come, and that is the Hebrew word for anointed one. And in the New Testament, we call him Christ, which is the Greek word for anointed one. So something to keep in mind for you there as well. David is referred to as the sweet psalmist of Israel. David wrote a significant number of psalms. The word psalm actually comes out of the Greek language, and it refers to a song that is sung on a harp. So if somebody's playing on a harp and they're singing along with it, that is a psalm. So the Psalms in the Old Testament were the hymnal of God's people. And David wrote most, might be fair to say most. I don't know that it quite reaches that much. I think it approaches 50% of our Psalms, though. He wrote at least 60, if I recall correctly. They're identified. Most of them start the Psalm of David or something like that. So you could go through and count them if you really wanted to. All right, verse 2, again, the idea of prophecy, that the Lord would speak through David, the Lord would speak by David. Verse 4 is something you can talk about with your children as well. And what benefits do we receive from these things? So the just king dawns on the people, is like the sun, is like the rain. What benefits do the morning light, the sun, and the rain provide for us? You can think of the morning light, which ushers in a new day. It brings about the ability to work and provide for our family. It carries with it an excitement as you wake up in the morning, or a peacefulness. If you think of the sun just peeking in through your window in the morning and rousing you from your night's slumber. Um, those kinds of characteristics. The sunlight gives warmth to the earth. It helps us to live and to thrive. The rain gives growth to the plants. All these kinds of things are being spoken of about the king over Israel who rules justly. And so, yes, we can apply these to David's reign, that Israel was benefited by a faithful king most of the time. But we can all the more then apply these things to Jesus and to his faithful reign over his people. That Jesus is our light, literally, according to the New Testament, that he is the one who provides for us. He is the one who cares for us. He is the one who causes us to live forever. These are important things for us to continue to remember. And that gets us into verse 5 as well. Encourage Well, ask your children. This is a chance to reflect and summarize again. What is this everlasting covenant David talks about? And it points back to the sentence before it that David's house stands with God. David has received a promise from the Lord that his house will endure forever. Someone will always sit on his throne over Israel. And again, asking our children, who is that who will sit on the throne over Israel always? And that is Jesus, as we learn in the New Testament. He is the Messiah. The Jews were looking for their Messiah to come from the house of David, the family line of David, because of that promise that was made back in chapter 7. Verses 6 and 7 introduce the idea of wicked men into the text. They can't be led. Instead, they're an adversary that has to be fought against. And that leads into the transition that brings us to this list of all the mighty men. So you have 37 of them. Most of them probably not recognizable to you, and that's okay. We don't have accounts of many of them given to us in Scripture. But we get this idea that, first off, there's three that are above all. These three, so you have Josheb Basshebeth in verse 8, you have Eleazar in verse 9, and you have Shammah in verse 11. These three men are the strongest of the three, the mightiest of the 37 warriors of David. And we get a couple of their accounts from them. So Josheb Basshebeth ends up striking down 800 at one time. So one battle, he wields his spear against so many. And then both Eleazar and Shammah, we get the accounts of them fighting against the Philistines single-handedly. And the Lord being the one who fights for them. Yahweh is the one who grants victory. We saw that with David in numerous spots in this book, that it is God who fights for his people. It is not the people that really are doing the fighting. And so with the mighty men, God is working through them to bring about victory for his people. As we look then later in this section, the weird account of David with a foolish request, wanting to drink water from Bethlehem that was currently occupied by the Philistines. It's good to return Bethlehem into the hands of Israel, sure, but that wasn't David's request. David's request was a drink of water from the well, and his three mighty men went and got it for him. And when they returned, he wouldn't drink it. He realized how foolish he had been, and so he offered up that thing that he wanted as a sacrifice to the Lord. He gave it over to Yahweh, which is good to do. We turn over all things to God, as David did with that. And then you get a couple of names that we can look at least. We have Abishai in verse 18. We also have Asahel in verse 24. So the two brothers of Joab are listed among the 37 mighty men. We also have Benaiah. We're going to learn more of him in the books to come. He's going to show up in First Kings. He kills two Ariels. Ariel or Ariel, the Disney princess movie. It's the Hebrew word for a lion. So here we have the idea that he killed two lions of Moab, and then he went and struck down a lion in a pit. It is quite possible that what the the author was writing for us did intend for this to be the idea that he killed 3 lions. It is taken in English often, though, when you see the translation as the two Ariel of Moab, instead of being translated as lions. ESV just left it as Ariel, which doesn't make any sense to the English reader, but some English translations will take that as um, lion-like warriors, so men who were mighty as a lion of Moab. The Hebrew text doesn't really go there. I guess it's possible. Let's see. We don't know, again, a lot about most of these men. We did see Asahel, verse 24, die at the hands of Abner, and we saw Uriah in verse 39 die at the hands of King David himself. So another opportunity, lots of summary that you can pull out of this chapter with your family.